The Galactic Council chamber was filled with tension. Representatives from hundreds of alien species sat in silence as the human ambassador, Marcus Hale, stood at the center. His expression was cold, his voice steady, but there was anger in his eyes. For decades, humanity had been a loyal member of the Council, following its rules, trading with other species, and keeping the fragile peace. But now things had changed. "We have given you everything," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the Grand Hall. "Our resources, our technology, our warriors. And in return, what did we get? Lies, betrayal, and chains disguised as laws." His gaze swept across the chamber, meeting the eyes of those who had voted against Earth's interests time and time again. The Supreme Chancellor, a towering insectoid being named Zaraquan, clicked his mandibles. "Ambassador Hale, the Council acts for the greater balance of the galaxy. Humanity must accept its place." Marcus clenched his fists. "Our place. We built your ships. We fought your wars. And when we asked for protection, you turned your backs on us." His voice grew louder. "The Corthan raiders attacked our colonies. We begged for help, and you ignored us. Millions of humans died because of your balance." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some council members looked away in shame. Others remained silent, their expressions neutral. Humanity had always been strong, but they were also outsiders. Many feared what would happen if humans gained too much power. Marcus took a deep breath. Enough of this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic emblem, the symbol of the Galactic Council. With a sharp motion, he threw it onto the floor. "Humanity is done being your servant. We are leaving the Council." Gasps filled the hall. No species had ever left the Council before. It was unheard of. Zaraquan slammed his claw on the table. "If humanity walks away, you will have no allies, no trade, no protection." Marcus smirked. "We protected ourselves before. We'll do it again." He turned and walked toward the exit, his steps firm and unshaken. As he reached the doorway, he paused. Without turning back, he spoke his final words to the Council. "Remember this day. You will regret it." Then he was gone. The chamber fell into chaos. Some species whispered in fear. Others watched in silence, realizing what this meant. Humanity, the species known for its resilience, its intelligence, and its ability to survive against impossible odds, had just walked away. Zaraquan exhaled slowly. "Fools," he muttered. "They do not understand the consequences." But it was the Council that had failed to understand. They believed that without their support, humanity would fall. They believed Earth needed them. They were wrong. And soon, the entire galaxy would pay the price. The departure of humanity from the Galactic Council sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For centuries, no species had dared to challenge the authority of the Council, let alone walk away from it. Now, the unthinkable had happened. The humans had left, and the cracks in the Council's power had begun to show. In the heart of the Council's capital, Supreme Chancellor Zaraquan sat in his private chamber, watching reports flood in. Trade routes were in chaos. Human-built starships, which made up a significant portion of the Council's fleet, had been recalled to Earth. The supply chains that relied on human technology were beginning to fail. Worst of all, without Earth's military, border colonies once protected by human soldiers were now vulnerable. "Chancellor," a nervous reptilian aide spoke, "we have reports that the Corthan raiders are mobilizing. They see humanity's departure as a sign of weakness. They are preparing for war." Zaraquan's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Fools. They think the Council is weak without the humans." He turned to the large holographic screen in front of him. "Send a message to the Senate. We must show strength. Deploy our forces to the outer colonies immediately." The aide hesitated. "Chancellor, the fleets are struggling. Many of our ships relied on human engineers. Without them, our warp drives are failing. Our weapons err. I do not want excuses. Zarak slammed his clawed hand on the table. We are the Galactic Council. We ruled this galaxy long before the humans arrived. We will not fall because of their absence. But deep inside, he felt a growing fear. Humanity had been an integral part of the Council's foundation. Their technology, their warriors, their relentless spirit, these had held the fragile peace together. Now, with them gone, old enemies were resurfacing and alliances were crumbling. Meanwhile, on Earth, in the United Earth Military Command, high-ranking officers gathered around a large table. Admiral Carter, one of Earth's most respected leaders, stood before them. The room was tense, but there was no regret, only determination. We have taken the first step toward independence, Carter said, his voice strong. The Council believed we could not survive without them. They think we are weak, but they are wrong. A general leaned forward. The Corthan raiders are already making moves. If the Council cannot stop them, it won't be long before they come for us. Carter nodded. Let them try. He tapped a console, and a holographic image appeared. Earth's new defense plan. For too long, we relied on the Council. No more. Our fleets are being upgraded. Our weapons are advancing. If anyone thinks humanity is vulnerable, they will learn the truth the hard way. The room was filled with murmurs of approval. The humans were not afraid. They were preparing. And when the storm came, they would be ready. Back in the Galactic Council, on the Council's outer colonies, chaos had already begun. Without human protection, pirate fleets attacked trade convoys. Small factions that once feared the Council were rising in rebellion. One by one, planets started questioning their allegiance. If the humans can leave, one ambassador whispered in a secret meeting, why can't we? The Council was crumbling, and humanity was watching. The Galactic Council was unraveling faster than anyone had predicted. It had been only weeks since humanity's departure, but the stability that once held the Great Alliance together was cracking. The Corthan raiders had launched attacks on border colonies, and trade routes were collapsing due to supply shortages. The once mighty Council was struggling to maintain control. Supreme Chancellor Zarak stood before the High Council, his mandibles twitching with frustration. The chamber was filled with shouts and accusations. Representatives from different species pointed fingers, blaming each other for the growing crisis. This is your fault, Zarak. A blue-skinned Kitharian ambassador growled. You let the humans leave, and now our colonies are burning. The Supreme Chancellor slammed his clawed fist onto the table. Enough. The Council remains strong. We will. Strong. A reptilian delegate scoffed. We relied on human-built ships, human-trained soldiers, human technology. Our defenses are falling apart without them. Zarak exhaled slowly. He knew they were right. Humanity had been the backbone of the Council's military and infrastructure. Now, their absence was a wound that refused to close. A messenger rushed into the chamber, his face pale. Chancellor, urgent news. He handed Zarak a datapad. The Supreme Chancellor's eyes narrowed as he read the report. It was worse than he feared. The Drakthal Dominion, one of the Council's oldest enemies, had mobilized its war fleets. They had remained silent for decades, too afraid of human retaliation. Now, with Earth gone, they saw an opportunity. Zarak clenched his jaw. Send a message to the remaining fleets. We must prepare for war. But deep down, he knew the truth. The Council was on the verge of collapse. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Carter watched the news reports with a small smirk. Everything was happening as predicted. Humanity had spent years being treated as second-class members of the Council, despite their contributions. Now, without them, the Great Galactic Alliance was falling apart. Sir, a lieutenant approached him. The Council just sent out an emergency distress signal. They're requesting military aid against the Drakthal invasion. Carter chuckled. They want our help now. The room erupted in laughter. For years, they ignored our pleas for help. One officer said, Now they come crawling back. Carter leaned back in his chair. Let them suffer. We warned them. They didn't listen. But what if the Drakthal conquer them? Another officer asked. Carter's smirk faded. He knew the dangers of the Drakthal. They weren't like the Korthan raiders, pirates who could be bought off or outmaneuvered. The Drakthal were conquerors. If they defeated the Council, Earth would be next. Carter stood up. Prepare our fleets. We're not fighting for the Council, but if war is coming, we won't be caught unprepared. Humanity would not be saviors, but they would be ready. Back in the Galactic Council, panic spread as more planets declared independence. The once mighty Council was now nothing more than a fractured government, clinging to power. In the shadows, some leaders began whispering a dangerous idea. If the humans won't help us willingly, one alien general muttered, perhaps we should force them to return. The Council was desperate, and desperate leaders made foolish decisions. War was coming, and humanity was waiting. The Galactic Council was bleeding. The Korthan raiders had taken 3 border colonies. The Drakthal Dominion's war fleets were moving deeper into Council space. Refugees were fleeing to central worlds, and once loyal planets were openly rebelling. The Council's military, weakened without human engineers and soldiers, was barely holding the line. Supreme Chancellor Zarak stood in the war chamber, his sharp claws gripping the edges of the holographic table. His council of advisors surrounded him, their faces filled with fear. We cannot win this war alone, an Uldari strategist admitted. Our ships are failing. Our weapons are outdated. If we do not act, the Council will fall within months. Zarak exhaled slowly. He had known this moment would come. There was only one logical course of action. We must bring the humans back. A stunned silence filled the room. The very idea was unthinkable. The Council had spent centuries treating humanity as a lesser race, only to realize, too late, that they had been the foundation holding everything together. But they will never return willingly, a reptilian general said. We insulted them. We ignored their warnings. Why would they save us now? Zarak mandibles twitched. Because they must. If the Drakthal win, humanity will be next. They cannot afford to let us fall. One of the advisors hesitated. And if they refuse? Zarak eyes darkened. Then we will make them. Meanwhile, on Earth, the United Earth military had been preparing for war since the moment they left the Council. In orbit, new warships were being built, sleek, powerful vessels, unlike anything the Council had ever seen. On the surface, troops were training harder than ever. Humanity was no longer a part of the Council. They were something greater. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, Invictus, watching the latest reports. The Council's fleets were crumbling. Entire sectors were falling into chaos. He should have felt satisfaction. Instead, he felt something else. Pity. They're losing everything, one officer muttered. And now, they want us back. Carter sighed. Desperation makes people do foolish things. Just then, a transmission alert blinked on his console. The Galactic Council was calling. Carter smirked. Let's hear what they have to say. Back in the Galactic Council, the Council's request for aid was met with cold silence. Humanity did not respond. Hours passed. Then a message arrived. It was from Admiral Carter. His face appeared on the holographic screen, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You ask for our help, he said. Tell me, Chancellor, why should we? Zarak took a deep breath. Because if the Drakthal take us down, your world will be next. Carter chuckled. Ah, so now you realize. The mighty Galactic Council finally understands what we tried to warn you about. His tone turned serious. You abandoned us. You treated us as inferiors. And now you crawl back, begging for help. Zarak mandibles twitched, but he forced himself to remain calm. We made mistakes, he admitted, but humanity has always been part of this galaxy. You helped build this civilization. You don't want to see it fall. Carter leaned forward. Then tell me the truth, Chancellor. If we save you, what happens next? Will humanity be given the respect we deserve? Or will you push us back down the moment your crisis is over? Zarak Kwan hesitated. He knew the answer Carter wanted. But the truth was, the Council had never seen humanity as equals. Even now, some members believed they should force Earth back into submission. Carter saw the hesitation. His smirk returned. That's what I thought. The transmission ended. The Council chamber fell into chaos. They've abandoned us, one ambassador shouted. Zarak Kwan remained silent. He knew what had to be done. If humanity wouldn't come willingly, they would have to be forced. On Earth, Carter leaned back in his chair, thinking. He had expected their reaction. He knew they would come up with a plan to manipulate or even threaten humanity into action. But they had no idea what they were dealing with. If they thought they could control humanity again, they were making the biggest mistake of their lives. Because Earth had changed. And this time, they would not bow to the Council. They would break it. Tensions had never been higher. The Galactic Council was out of options. Their fleets were breaking, their colonies were falling, and the Drakthal Dominion was closing in. Humanity had rejected their plea for aid, and now desperation was driving them to do the unthinkable. In the war chamber, Supreme Chancellor Zarak Kwan made his final decision. If they will not return willingly, he growled, then we will force their hand. A cold silence followed his words. The advisors and generals exchanged uneasy glances. No one wanted to speak first. Finally, a Yuldari ambassador whispered, "Are you suggesting we threaten Earth?" Zarak Kwan slammed his fist against the table. Not a threat. A necessary action. We cannot allow humanity to isolate itself while the galaxy burns. They are too powerful, too advanced. If we fall, they will be next. We must ensure their cooperation, by any means necessary. A reptilian general nodded slowly. We have a plan. The lights dimmed as a holographic display flickered to life. A planet appeared in the center of the table. It was a world on the edge of human-controlled space, a colony. New Avalon. If we seize this colony, the general continued, we gain leverage. We tell Earth they have two choices, help the Council or watch their people suffer. A murmur of unease spread through the chamber. This is dangerous, an advisor hissed. Humans do not react well to threats. They are unpredictable. Zarak Kwan's eyes hardened. Desperate times required desperate measures. No one objected. The plan was set. New Avalon. The attack begins. New Avalon was a thriving human colony, home to over 3 million people. It was one of Earth's outermost settlements, a beacon of progress. The Galactic Council believed it would be an easy target. They were wrong. The attack began at dawn. Council warships dropped out of hyperspace, surrounding the planet. Troop transports descended through the atmosphere, deploying thousands of soldiers to secure key locations. The Council expected the humans to surrender quickly. Instead, they fought back with terrifying efficiency. From the moment the Council forces landed, they were met with resistance. Automated defense turrets ripped through enemy squads. Civilians took up arms, fighting alongside the colony's defense forces. Even unarmed workers set traps, using explosives and ambush tactics. A squad of Council soldiers, led by a seasoned officer, stormed a communications center, only to be cut down by a lone human sniper from a rooftop. Another platoon advanced through the city streets, until hidden explosives tore through their formation. Within hours, the battle had turned into a nightmare. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning. Earth's response. Admiral Carter watched the battle unfold from the bridge of Invictus. His expression was unreadable. The Council thought they were taking hostages. Instead, they had declared war. "How long until our fleet arrives?" he asked. 5 minutes, sir, an officer responded. New Avalon's defenses are holding, but they need backup. Carter exhaled slowly. The fools. They still didn't understand. Open a channel to the Council flagship, he ordered. The transmission connected. Zarak Kwan's image flickered onto the screen, looking confident, until he saw Carter's face. The Admiral leaned forward, voice cold as steel. You just made the biggest mistake of your lives. Zarak Kwan hesitated. Admiral, this is... Carter cut him off. No, you listen. You came to us for help, and we refused. So instead of accepting your fate, you attacked our people. You invaded our colony. He paused, letting his words sink in. Did you really think we would just let that slide? Zarak Kwan's mandibles twitched. We did what we had to. The fate of the galaxy. Carter's eyes burned with fury. You just declared war on humanity. The transmission ended. Moments later, Earth's fleet arrived. The retaliation. The battle for New Avalon turned into a slaughter. The Invictus led the charge, its weapons tearing through Council warships like paper. Human fighter squadrons weaved through enemy formations, launching precise, devastating attacks. Within minutes, half the Council fleet was in flames. On the ground, the invading forces panicked. Their reinforcements were cut off. Their escape routes were destroyed. One by one, they were eliminated. By the end of the day, not a single Council soldier remained. Humanity had sent a message. They were done playing by the Council's rules. The Council had made a grave mistake. New Avalon was supposed to be a strategic move, a way to pressure Earth into returning to the Galactic Council's cause. Instead, it became the spark that ignited an unstoppable war. Humanity had tolerated the Council's arrogance for too long. The attack on their colony was the final straw. Now they would make the galaxy remember why humanity was feared. The Council in panic. On the Galactic Council's homeworld, panic spread like wildfire. Reports of the failed attack on New Avalon arrived within hours. The Council fleet had been annihilated. The invasion force was wiped out. Worse, humanity wasn't stopping there. Emergency session is now in order, the speaker announced, his voice shaking. The humans are mobilizing. Their fleet is moving toward our core worlds. The chamber filled with terrified whispers. No one had expected this. No one had imagined that humanity, once a peaceful member of the Council, would unleash their full military might. How could this happen? One senator demanded. We were trying to save the galaxy by invading their territory. Another snapped. You fools thought they would kneel. Instead, you made them angry. Supreme Chancellor Zarak Kwan slammed his fist against the table. We must act now. We must gather all remaining fleets and form a defensive perimeter against humans. An Uldari diplomat whispered. His face was pale, his antennae twitching in fear. We have never faced an enemy like them. They fight without mercy. They are relentless. If they strike at our core worlds, they will not stop until we are destroyed. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council felt something new. Dread. The human offensive begins. The fleet moved like a storm. Earth's warships spread across the stars, targeting key Council strongholds. One by one, Council-controlled planets fell. Their defenses crumbled before the sheer firepower of the human assault. On the planet Virquol, the Council's largest military outpost, alarms blared across the city as human warships descended from the skies. Commander Ralvix watched in horror from the control tower. They're already here, he whispered. The human ships unleashed devastation. Orbital bombardments reduced Council strongholds to rubble. Dropships poured into the streets, deploying heavily armed soldiers, and humanity fought with terrifying efficiency. The battle did not last long. Within hours, Virquol surrendered. Its defenders were either captured or dead. Across the galaxy, the same pattern repeated. The Council was losing world after world. Their forces were shattered, their morale broken. And worst of all, humanity had not lost a single battle. No mercy, no surrender. Admiral Carter stood aboard the bridge of the Invictus, watching another council stronghold burn in the distance. His officers awaited his orders, but the decision had already been made. There would be no negotiations, no treaties, no mercy. The council had wanted to control humanity. They had wanted to use Earth as a pawn in their war. Now, they would suffer for it. Carter turned to his communications officer. Send a message to all remaining council forces. They have one chance: surrender or be wiped out. The officer nodded and relayed the message. Moments later, responses flooded in. Some council worlds surrendered immediately, desperate to escape humanity's wrath. Others refused, choosing to fight. It did not matter. The war would not end until the council was completely crushed. The final stand. Desperate and afraid, the council gathered their last remaining fleets for one final battle. They knew they could not win, but they had no other choice. On the edge of the galaxy, the last great war fleet of the Galactic Council formed a defensive line. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, all standing against the unstoppable tide of human warships. And then the sky burned. Earth's fleet arrived, larger and deadlier than ever. The Invictus led the charge, followed by battleships, cruisers, and dreadnoughts. The final battle had begun. The battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy had begun. The last remaining fleet of the Galactic Council stood in formation, ready to defend their power one last time. Their ships formed an impenetrable wall of steel and energy, their weapons primed and locked onto the approaching human fleet. But deep down, every council officer, every soldier, every leader knew the truth. This was not a battle they could win. The wrath of humanity. The Invictus led the charge. Human warships surged forward like a tidal wave. Their weapons roared with relentless fury. Energy beams tore through council ships, missiles found their marks, and railguns ripped through shields like paper. Within moments, the council's defensive line shattered. The battle turned into chaos. Council ships tried to maneuver, tried to fight back, but humanity had perfected the art of war. The council had relied on diplomacy, manipulation, and politics for too long. Humanity had been forged by war. One by one, the council's warships exploded into flames. Escape pods ejected into space, their crews surrendering in desperation. On the council's homeworld, leaders watched in horror as their fleet was destroyed. Their power, their rule, their control, all of it was coming to an end. The last transmission. As the last council battleship fell, a final transmission echoed across the stars. Supreme Chancellor Zarak Kwan's voice trembled. Humans, we surrender. The bridge of the Invictus fell silent. Admiral Carter stared at the screen, his expression unreadable. The council had finally broken. Carter took a deep breath. Broadcast our response. A moment later, his voice was transmitted to every council world, every remaining leader, every survivor. There is no council anymore, he said coldly. There is only humanity. Your time is over. And with those words, the Galactic Council ceased to exist. A new order. The galaxy had changed forever. With the council gone, the old power structures crumbled. Once mighty empires bowed before humanity, desperate to avoid their wrath. But Earth did not seek an empire. They did not conquer. They warned. A message was sent to every race, every world, every system. We do not seek war, but we will never be controlled again. If you try, you will suffer the same fate as the council. No one dared to challenge them. And so, humanity walked away, not as rulers, not as tyrants, but as a force the galaxy would never forget. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of humanity had begun.